What's up everybody, welcome back to a brand new video on Lexalexus. Really massive apologies for not uploading a lot. I've been really busy with work very recently and I've not really been able to cover any transfer news as well. But trust me, I have heard about all the deals that have taken place. I hear them enough at work as well. So I do know a good amount of the signings and the business that every team has done in the Championship, which I can subtly mention when I do my predictions today. So obviously we had a bit of a break from the Championship following we had an FA Cup weekend. I will be talking a little bit about that as well. But we've got a really big game week coming up actually. Some really big games at the top and the bottom of the Championship. And I think it's going to be an interesting contest today to predict all these 12 games. For the Prediction League, I have updated the standings which I posted on my Discord server. If you want to join my Discord server, you just got to click on the first link in the description down below. I will also keep you up to date with the current standings on the community tab as well. And to make sure you get every single notification I do, whether it's a community post or a video, you need to make sure you hit that subscribe button because that really does help the growth of this channel and it means you don't miss a thing. Turning on that notification bell as well also means you don't miss a single one of my things. Please hit the like button as well because that really helps the growth of this channel as well. As you can see, the target is 25 likes. If we can get that, that will be absolutely amazing. And please share the channel too because all these things really help. But without any further ado, let's start predicting match day 30 of the Championship. So the first game to predict is West Brom versus Coventry. This is the Friday night game taking place tomorrow. I think Coventry will be really relieved that they didn't lose too many key star players within their squad. Gyökeres was heavily linked with Everton at one point, but the fact that they kept him, it could be a crucial bit of business for Coventry there, considering they are lingering in around a mid-table position, and if they're going to lose their main goal threat, it could have seen them on a negative trajectory. So potentially a really good bit of business in the end for Coventry, despite not even really signing that many players. West Brom have actually had a bit of a rocky patch in their form quite recently. They've lost 2 games in a row now, but one in the Championship, which was that late defeat against Burnley, and also losing pretty heavily to Bristol City. It was a very disappointing showing in the FA Cup. Perhaps they're looking more towards the league as a bit of a priority. They're currently in a good conversation of trying to get into the top 6 at the moment. Definitely, if they can stay consistent, they will definitely be a favourite to get there at the moment. I just have a feeling with this game, I think it's going to be really close. The reverse fixture, if you remember, was a 1-0 Coventry win. So I do think it's going to be a very tight game between these two. But I think with West Brom improving and the fact that they are home, I think it might be West Brom that nick a win. I'm going to go 1-0 West Brom, but I think it will actually be a really close game. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game is Norwich Burnley. Now, I'm actually really excited for this one because Norwich have really started to improve, and I'm really enjoying watching Norwich feel more fluid, look more confident going forward since David Wagner has taken over from Norwich, and it does look more like a familiar Norwich team we're used to in the Championship. Now, obviously with Burnley, they've kept an 8-game unbeaten run going into the Championship and into this game. I thought West Brom was going to be a really tough test, and they managed to not only win, but come from 1-0 down as well, and the early goal they conceded as well. So Burnley's mentality this season has been fantastic. They do, however, have got to go to a replay against Ipswich Town in the FA Cup, but I think definitely they'll be looking at this game being a bigger priority. So they'll be playing both East Anglian clubs, in very quick succession, actually, strangely enough. I think Burnley are not going to lose, but I can see Norwich getting something here. I think they have improved to the point where I think Norwich will start causing Burnley some more problems. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, but I think even if Burnley drop 2 points, I really don't think they're going to be under danger of potentially dropping out of the top 2 as of yet. So that's the luxury of Burnley, that they could potentially afford a couple of slips along the way and they can still get promoted relatively comfortably. Norwich, however, are on catch-up, so they're definitely going to be the team more under pressure. So therefore, I do think Norwich will up their game. but I think they'll just fall short with a 1-1 draw. Let me know what you think about it, by the way, in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Rotherham versus Sheffield United. With Sheffield United, we saw them involved with that incredible game against Wrexham. It definitely was an incredible spectacle, a 6-goal thriller and a last-minute equaliser by Egan, I think it was, to keep Sheffield United's FA Cup dreams alive, and they're going to have to play against Wrexham again, which I think will be an interesting game. The defending was less said about that, the better, I would probably say. They're facing a Rotherham team where, I've got to be honest, I think Rotherham haven't really started to have a bit of a turnaround. You know, we've seen Rotherham go through positive spells and then a really bad patch of form. But Rotherham have actually picked up their form again. Their last home game against Blackburn was a 4-0 win. And if they can reproduce something similar in this game, I think they can cause Sheffield United problems. I know Sheffield United have been outstanding with how consistent they've been this season. But I do think Rotherham are actually going to pose a really big test for them here. As a prediction, I'm going to not only predict Burnley to drop points, but also Sheffield United, shockingly enough. I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw, likewise with Burnley. So I am predicting the top two to drop points, which probably will be a bit silly for me to predict. But I do think when you stay unbeaten for so long, which is exactly what Burnley and Sheffield United have done, it just gets a lot more tiring and just a lot more difficult to maintain it. So I think both teams will fall short of a win, but I think they'll stay unbeaten. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Huddersfield versus QPR. So Huddersfield currently still in the bottom three. They have got games in hand though. They had their last game actually recently postponed against Blackpool. They did play last week. They were one of the few games that actually was able to be played last week following the FA Cup weekend. They lost 2-0 to Coventry, and a pretty bad timing of a defeat really, following that a lot of the teams around them in the bottom part of the table weren't in action. So it was a big opportunity missed for Huddersfield in that front there. But I do think at home, Huddersfield have looked a bit more consistent than what they have done in an away showing. For QPR, I am quite worried about them, and I think Neil Critchley is now starting to see the work and the job he has got to do. QPR have definitely been really just going down on a decline pretty rapidly as well. I believe in 14 games, it's only one win that they picked up there. So the fact that they're really struggling and having relegation form, it's something that definitely needs to be turned around as soon as possible. And even the signings, I just think the whole squad don't look happy to play, and it looks like that they're lacking the motivation and momentum. So a lot of things are not going right for QPR at the moment. And I think Huddersfield, if they do sense that, and they have made a couple of signings, Huddersfield, following a couple of key departures as well, I could see Huddersfield potentially getting something from this game. So as a prediction, I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 victory to Huddersfield, shockingly enough. I have predicted a couple of wins for Huddersfield before and been wrong, but this one could potentially be one that I might be proven right. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game today is Hull Cardiff. So I'd have looked at this game a couple of weeks ago being a relegation 6-pointer, but Liam Rosenior has definitely got more consistency now with this Hull City side, to the point where I actually think Hull are looking a little bit far away from that conversation of being into the bottom three now. But that is definitely not the case for Cardiff, who they were one of the two teams to have sacked their managers since I made my last video on my channel. So obviously they parted ways with Ashton, and they managed to get Sabri Lamucci as their new manager. And he has had one game for Cardiff. A couple of days ago they played against Luton Town. It was an encounter where I feel like they would have really been an appreciative for on point, and Adebayo missed a penalty for Luton, so maybe things were going to go their way for Cardiff, but a late goal for Adebayo really put Cardiff down. And I think a draw, whilst it wasn't 3 points, I think to get an away point against the top 6 team in Luton Town would have been an incredible result considering the circumstances. And I think against a Hull City side where they're looking like they're improving their form, they're looking more consistent, I think definitely a slight progress, but definite signs of progress of Liam Rosenior's Hull City side. I think they'll get a win here. If they play anything like for when they managed to smash QPR by 3-0, I think they're going to do the same here. So as a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Hull, and I actually think they'll continue to improve this season. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game today is Luton versus Stoke City. So Luton very comfortably within the top 6 at the moment, but obviously we have got a very small amount of points separating third from 14th even. So definitely the top part of the table is very, very close, and a couple of games could really set teams back, or could really set teams in the driving seat to get into the top 6 entirely. And Luton have found themselves in the positive end of that at the moment. Stoke, I think, are slowly but surely trying to build themselves back. I think a bit similar to Hull, it's going to take a very slow process. But I'm definitely seeing some progress being brought in. Their last championship game, they beat Reading by 4-0. It was a brilliant performance, actually. And then they followed up beating Stevenage by 3-1. Bit nervy, but then they managed to turn it around when they needed to, which I think was really encouraging there. So I see Stoke improving, and I think Luton are going to find it very difficult with the short turnaround from their game against Cardiff to this one there. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think Stoke always are a tricky team for Luton. I think it's only 1 win in 8 for Luton against Stoke, so I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game today is Middlesbrough versus Blackpool. So Middlesbrough, definitely at home, have really looked like that they really turned their season around with Michael Carrick. A win for them could really put them within the driver's seat of being a favourite or a contender of being into the top 6. I don't say we talk about automatic promotion at the moment. You know, for what we've seen so far, it looks like Burnley and Sheffield United have wrapped that up already, which is absolutely crazy that we're talking about this in bloody February. But I think Middlesbrough, if they can even get to the top 6, considering the start they've had and the turnaround, it's absolutely incredible. I feel we've had many success stories this season, and definitely Middlesbrough's turnaround would be one of those. They face a Blackpool team where this will be the first game in the Championship that we'll see Mick McCarthy take over. So to be fair, he actually wasn't a manager appointment that happened after my last video. They actually parted ways during the recording of my last video on my channel, which was my review to the previous game week. And I did see Blackpool against Southampton, and I thought they were actually quite decent, actually. They narrowly lost out by 2-1 to Premier League opposition, but this is where it matters. And I think the signings, definitely from the calibre, especially for the defenders, I am seeing a very Mick McCarthy-esque approach to this. So I think Blackpool definitely are looking like to try and graft to survive. And I think that's definitely the most sensible thing that they can do at the moment. As a prediction, however, I just think Middlesbrough are too good at home, to be honest. I'm going 2-1 Middlesbrough. They had a brilliant response after losing against Sunderland by beating Watford very comfortably, a top 6 rival. And I think once again, this will be another victory at home for Middlesbrough. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game today is Millwall Sunderland. So real devastating news for Sunderland, where we saw Ross Stewart recover from a long-term injury, hitting the ground running. He just then goes and gets an injury, and the news is that he's now going to be suspended. And well, I say suspended, he's going to be injured for the rest of the season. He's not going to be available, and that is heartbreaking for Sunderland if they felt they had any chance of getting into the top 6. That bit of news is going to make that so much more challenging for them now. They were really trying all they can to try and cope with that absence, and they struggled initially, but they started to pick up again. And for the fact they actually rode with that Ross Stewart form, you know, it was priceless really. And for him to be injured that much of the season, you can imagine what places are Sunderland actually missing out on based on them losing their top goal scorer or their most prolific goal scorer really. I know they have strengthened in the January transfer window, but I don't think even they could have foretold that Ross Stewart will be out for this much of the season. Against a Millwall team where I think at home they've been relatively good this season so far. I think they had a bit more of a quieter January transfer window where I don't think they really needed to splash out. You know, they are looking very comfortable in their own way. I feel like this is going to be one of those games where I think not a lot is going to happen. As a prediction, I'm actually going to go for a 0-0 draw in this one. I don't see either team winning it, and I don't feel like it will be a real high goal fest. So I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game today is Preston Bristol City. So both these teams have had FA Cup action, both with contrasting results. Preston losing out to Premier League side Tottenham Hotspur by, I believe it was 3-0 in the end. But then for Bristol City, they win by 3-0 against West Brom. It was a brilliant performance by Bristol City, a result that kind of came out of nowhere. And honestly, I think this is going to help the confidence of Bristol City going into this game week here. It is going to be interesting to see if Semenyo leaving is really going to have a bad impact on them, because I do see him being a very important part of their attack, and they've lost a really big part of it now. Cornick has been an interesting addition. Whether he's going to fill in the shoes of Semenyo, because I feel like they're pretty different players in different positions, I do think it's going to be an interesting mix there. And I do think Bristol City have definitely looked to strengthen their striking position. They have let a lot of players go in that area as well. So definitely trying to revolutionise more goals. And I definitely think that would have been a thing that I would have recommended for Bristol City to do. With Preston, they've also made a signing. They got Josh Onuma in on deadline day. I think it was 6-month contract there. So a bit more creativity added into that Preston squad. But having said that, going into this game, Preston have had a real torrid time at home, haven't they? They've been poor. Their last home game was that 4-0 defeat to Norwich. And I don't really see a lot improving here if they're going to defend the way that they did against Norwich here against the Bristol City side, with new attacking players hungry to make a first impact. I think it could be a Bristol City win here. I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory to Bristol City, where they have been getting a better Preston quite recently. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Reading versus Watford. So I remember watching the reverse game as a stream actually, and Watford, I've got to say, were very comfortable when they played against Reading last time. But this time, however, we've definitely seen Watford really having the side effects of trying to cope with the injuries that they've had. And they're really, really struggling to produce more. They had Sarr heavily linked to Everton as well, alongside with Gyökeres, but none of those players managed to get their moves to Everton there. So both are going to be very important to their own rights, to their own championship teams. But with Reading, they had a really poor showing against Stoke last time in the championship. They also had FA Cup action playing against Manchester United. Watford are coming off the bat with a 2-0 defeat against Middlesbrough. So, understandably, as I keep saying, I'm not confident with Watford, I've got to be honest. And Reading have been relatively good at home. Having said that, based on the fact that Reading have not been particularly great in the league recently, I'm going to compromise therefore, and I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. So, I'm going to go for a draw in this game. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Swansea versus Birmingham. Birmingham have really been struggling, I've got to be honest. They had an FA Cup game against Blackburn that went the whole way there. They had a replay quite recently and they had to go and play to extra time. Birmingham still losing out in that game despite putting in a pretty strong squad in that game as well. Things are just not clicking. They still have not picked up a point in 2023. They're the only team in the championship not to do that so far. They're facing the Swansea team where at home they've looked relatively good. So for me, unless Birmingham pull off a miracle, it will feel like a foregone conclusion in my mind that I think Swansea are going to win by 2-0. I actually think it'll be a pretty good victory for Swansea here. It'll be one that really helps them trying to sneak into the conversation of the top 6. So I'm going to go 2-0 Swansea. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Final game to predict, guys, is Blackburn Wigan. So Wigan were the only other team alongside with Cardiff to actually change their manager during my small break of YouTube. Kolo Toure has had a frankly disastrous season. I wasn't sure when he was appointed, and lo and behold, less than 2 months within the job, 33% of his games playing against Luton Town, only 9 games. It was really, really poor for him to, being trusted with this role, to be sacked as quickly as he was. And it almost feels like for appointing an ex-Wigan player into Maloney as their manager, it almost feels like that they are accepting that they're going down. I've got to be honest, and it feels really negative for me to say, but they really could have done more to try and bring a manager in that was definitely going to give the fans more confidence that they can get out of this. Because despite with their points per game, not looking pretty good, it will put them on 41 points if their current points per game go to the end of the season. Give them 2-3 wins in a row, then all of a sudden Wigan look a lot more comfortable to get out of the situation they find themselves. But if they don't win in the next 2-3 games, I think Wigan will start getting cut adrift against a Blackburn team who've been a bit more inconsistent as of late. Definitely one of the biggest stories of the transfer window was hearing Ben Brereton Diaz going to Villarreal. They definitely have recruited well with Saul, but Thomas, I think that's going to be a good signing. As a prediction, however, I do think Blackburn have got it within them. I think Wigan currently in a bit of disarray for me. I don't have a lot of confidence in them. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Blackburn Rovers. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. So guys, that is my predictions done for the Championship for match day 30. Make sure, guys, you predict your games in the comments down below as well, just so that you guys can have a chance to enter the Lexalexus Football Prediction League. It's part of the fun of this series. If you guys enjoyed the video today, please smash the like button. 25 likes is the target. If we can get that, that'd be absolutely amazing. Please hit the subscribe button. That really does help. And please share the channel too. All of these things really do help the growth of this channel, and you guys will be making such a big difference. You really, really do. You guys have been absolutely awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary. If it's on the end of this video, and as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.